Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be diving into Islamic theology
Hmm.
and looking at two of Allah's most important attributes, Ar-Rehman and Ar-Raheem.
Such beautiful concepts. And
Yeah.
we have a really fascinating article to help guide us through this.
Oh, okay.
It's called Ar-Rehman and Al-Raheem, an analogy with the mother's womb.
I know. When I first saw that title, I was so intrigued,
Yeah.
like using the experience of a mother's womb to understand divine compassion. That's powerful stuff.
It is a powerful analogy.
And it really got me thinking.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered like how a mother's love could actually help us grasp the vastness
Yeah.
and the intimacy of God's mercy?
It's a beautiful way to think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what we're going to try to unpack today.
That's what we're going to do.
So let's just start with the basics.
Okay.
Like, what exactly do Ar-Rahman and Ar-Raheem mean?
So they both stem from the Arabic word rahmah,
Okay.
which means mercy or compassion.
Yeah.
But when you dig a little deeper, you start to find these subtle but significant distinctions.
Give us the nuances.
Okay, so imagine the sun
Okay.
and its rays reaching every single corner of the earth, warming every being regardless of who they are or what they've done.
Okay.
That's Ar-Rahman.
Mm-hmm.
It's this all-encompassing, universal compassion, a constant and ever-present force.
So it's like this baseline of mercy that just extends to absolutely everything.
Absolutely.
Okay. I like that.
Now picture this. A master craftsman who's meticulously guiding his apprentice,
Okay.
patiently nurturing their skills and celebrating their growth.
Mm-hmm.
That's akin to Ar-Raheem.
Okay.
So it's more focused, a more personal form of mercy, specifically for believers, guiding and supporting them on their own unique spiritual journeys.
So Ar-Rahman is like the air we breathe available to all, while Ar-Raheem is that personalized attention you get from a mentor, carefully shaping and refining your potential.
Such a good way to put it.
I'm already starting to see how the womb analogy ties into this.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the Arabic word for womb, rahim, shares the same root as rahmah,
Okay.
really highlighting this beautiful link between nurturing and mercy.
And the article really emphasizes that connection.
Yeah.
It describes the womb as like this perfectly designed environment, providing everything the baby needs without any conditions or expectations.
Yeah.
It's pure, unconditional care.
Exactly. And just as the womb nourishes and protects without judgment, Allah's compassion, his Ar-Rahman, is present for all of creation.
So that brings to mind Surah Ar-Rahman in the Quran,
Yes.
which is often described as this poetic tapestry of Allah's countless blessings upon humanity and nature.
It paints such vivid images, doesn't it?
It does.
Think about the intricate balance of ecosystems, the vastness of the oceans teeming with life, or even just the air we breathe.
Yeah.
Surah Ar-Rahman is calling on us to recognize those everyday miracles, reminding us that Allah's Ar-Rahman is woven into the very fabric of existence.
And I love how the surah repeatedly asks, then which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? It's like this gentle nudge, urging us to really reflect on all those blessings, big and small,
Yeah.
that we often just take for granted.
What's fascinating about that recurring question is how it encourages a shift in our perspective. It's not just about passively receiving. It's about consciously acknowledging and appreciating
Okay.
the continuous presence of divine compassion in our lives.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've established that Ar-Rahman is this universal, all-encompassing compassion.
Right.
But what about Ar-Raheem?
Okay.
That deeper, more personal mercy for believers. How does that manifest in our lives?
I think this is where that image of the womb becomes even more profound.
Okay.
You know? Think about it. A mother's womb doesn't just provide for the baby at one stage.
Right.
It adapts, it grows, it constantly meets the evolving needs of the developing child.
Oh, so as the child grows, the womb's care kind of evolves as well?
Exactly.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
Ar-Raheem works in a similar way. It's a dynamic mercy, constantly supporting and guiding believers through each stage of their spiritual development.
It's like that skilled mentor who's giving personalized advice and encouragement, like helping you unlock your full potential.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Just as every individual has a unique set of talents and challenges, Allah's Ar-Raheem caters to the specific needs of each believer, guiding them towards their highest good.
This is so insightful, but it also makes me wonder if Ar-Raheem is like this constant guide, this personalized support system. What about our experiences of hardship and suffering?
Oh, that's a good question.
Where is that divine compassion when life throws us those curveballs?
That is a question for the ages.
Yeah.
And it's one that we'll dive into next time. Because even within that protected environment of a mother's womb, there can be challenges.
Okay.
And those challenges, as we'll explore, offer really profound insights into the nature of divine compassion.
All right. I can't wait to unpack that.
Yeah.
So join us for part 2 as we explore how Ar-Rehman and Ar-Raheem manifest during those times of hardship and what that means for our own spiritual growth. Welcome back. Last time we kind of left off on a pretty big question.
Yeah.
Where's that divine compassion when life gets tough? Right?
It's a big one.
We talked about Ar-Rehman as that constant, like, universal love, and then Ar-Raheem as that personalized guidance for believers.
Right.
But what happens when we face those inevitable challenges, the suffering, those moments that make us question everything? How does that all fit into the picture of a merciful God?
It's a question that's been pondered by theologians and philosophers for centuries.
Yeah.
And Islamic theology offers some really fascinating perspectives on how to kind of reconcile suffering with the concept of a loving God.
You know, it's interesting, as we were discussing the womb as an analogy for Allah's mercy, it struck me that, like, what happens when that seemingly perfect, protected environment is disrupted? What about those times when there are complications during pregnancy, or even when, like, the birth itself is really difficult?
You're making a brilliant connection there.
Yeah.
You're drawing a parallel between those challenges of birth and the trials we face throughout our lives.
Exactly. Because even in the most loving and nurturing environment, there can still be pain, struggle, and those unforeseen obstacles.
And that struggle, as you pointed out, is such an inherent part of the human experience. It's woven into the fabric of our existence. But I think the key here lies in how we understand that struggle within the context of a merciful God.
So how does Islamic theology address that? Because it does seem like a potential contradiction, right? If Allah is all compassionate,
right,
why do we suffer at all? Why isn't life just, like, always this blissful journey?
Well, I think it's important to remember that suffering can take many forms.
Okay.
You know, there's physical pain, emotional distress, the grief of loss, and even that feeling of spiritual emptiness or a disconnection from God. But Islamic teachings actually emphasize that these challenges aren't meant to be some sort of arbitrary punishment.
Okay.
Instead, they're viewed as opportunities for growth, for purification, and ultimately for drawing closer to Allah.
Okay, I'm interested to unpack that a bit, because how can suffering be an opportunity for growth? It seems a little counterintuitive.
Well, think about it this way. When you're facing hardship, you're forced to confront your own vulnerability. It strips away those illusions of control that we often cling to. And that can be a really humbling experience.
Yeah, we realize we're not as invincible as we thought we were.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we come face to face with our own limitations.
Okay.
And in that space of vulnerability, we're often more receptive to turning to Allah for strength, for guidance, and for comfort.
Yeah.
And it's in those moments of weakness that we may actually truly appreciate the depth of His mercy and His presence in our lives.
So it's not that the hardship itself is the mercy, but it creates the space for us to experience mercy in a deeper, more profound way.
You got it.
Okay, yeah.
And you mentioned Ar-Raheem earlier, that personalized guidance, that tailored support that Allah offers to believers.
Right.
And when you're navigating those difficult times, that connection with the divine can really be a lifeline.
That reminds me of something else. We often hear that, like, challenges can build character. Is that part of how suffering is seen as an opportunity?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Think about the qualities that are refined through hardship. Patience, resilience, empathy, gratitude.
Yeah.
These are all virtues that are highly valued in Islam.
Okay.
And facing those challenges can really cultivate those virtues within us.
It's like going through a fire and coming out stronger on the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not only do we become stronger internally, but that experience allows us to connect with others who are suffering in a much deeper way.
Yeah.
And we develop compassion and understanding that we might not have had otherwise.
Yeah, we've been through the fire, so to speak, so we recognize the pain of others who are going through it too.
Yeah, exactly. We can offer that support and empathy from a place of genuine understanding.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that shared experience of suffering can really forge some of the strongest bonds between people.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is all starting to come together, but I'm also wondering about those situations where the suffering is just immense.
Yeah,
Almost too much to bear.
right.
What about those times when it feels like there's no possible good that can come from it?
That's where faith and trust in Allah becomes so important.
Yeah.
Even when you can't possibly comprehend the reason for your suffering, Islamic teachings encourage you to trust that He has a plan, that He's with you in your pain, even when you feel totally alone.
So it's about surrendering to that bigger picture even when we can't see it clearly.
Yes, and it's about acknowledging that your limited human perspective can't always grasp the infinite wisdom of Allah. There may be reasons for your suffering that you simply can't comprehend in this lifetime.
That's a humbling thought.
It is.
It reminds me of a saying I once heard. If you knew the wisdom behind God's plans, you would never stop thanking Him.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it highlights such a crucial element of Islamic theology, that surrender to God's will doesn't negate the pain of suffering,
Right.
but it offers a framework for navigating it with faith and hope.
So it's not about denying the pain or pretending that it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's about finding a way to hold both the pain and the hope, the struggle and the mercy,
Absolutely.
all at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that's where true strength and resilience come from. Not from avoiding suffering, but from facing it with courage and faith.
Okay.
Knowing that you have a source of support that will never abandon you.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
So we've talked about how Islamic theology approaches suffering in light of divine compassion. Are there any specific examples from the Quran or the Prophet's teachings that offer guidance on dealing with hardship?
Absolutely. One of the most profound examples is the story of Prophet Ayub,
Okay.
known as Job in the Bible.
Yeah.
He faced unimaginable suffering, losing his wealth, his family, his health.
Wow.
But throughout his ordeal, he never lost faith in Allah. He continued to pray, to supplicate, and to express his gratitude.
Okay.
And ultimately, Allah restored his health and his fortunes.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, when it feels like all hope is lost, we should never give up on turning to Allah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the story of Prophet Ayub really emphasizes that suffering can be a test of faith.
Okay.
It's an opportunity to actually demonstrate your trust in Allah, even when it's incredibly difficult.
This is all incredibly insightful,
Yep.
but I'm also wondering, what are the practical implications of all this for us?
Yeah.
How does this understanding of suffering and divine mercy help us deal with those difficult situations in our own lives?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah.
It's great to talk about these like abstract theological concepts, but how do we actually apply them when we're in the thick of it, when we're facing those very personal challenges
Yeah, exactly.
that inevitably arise in life?
It's one thing to understand the theory, but how do we translate that into practice?
Well, for me, one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of perspective. When you're going through a tough time, it's so easy to get tunnel vision,
Yeah.
to focus solely on the pain and lose sight of the bigger picture.
It's like that saying, can't see the forest for the trees.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But remembering Ar-Rehman and Al-Raheem can help you zoom out, so to speak,
Okay.
and remind you that even in those darkest moments, you're still surrounded by that divine compassion. You're not alone in your struggles.
It's like a shift in focus, right?
Yeah.
Instead of asking, why me?
Right.
You can ask, how can I grow from this? Or how can I use this experience to become closer to Allah?
Exactly. And even if you don't have all the answers, even if you're still struggling to make sense of it all, you can find comfort in knowing that you're not alone,
Okay.
that Allah is with you, offering His mercy and support every step of the way. And that hardship, while it is painful, can ultimately lead to that spiritual refinement and a deeper understanding of your faith.
This has been so illuminating.
Good.
But before we wrap up, there's one more aspect of this I'd like to explore.
Okay.
We've talked about how we can access Allah's mercy during times of need.
Yeah.
But what about our responsibility to actually extend that mercy to others?
Oh, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
And it's a natural progression from what we've been discussing.
Yeah.
It's not just about receiving mercy, it's about becoming conduits of mercy ourselves,
Okay.
reflecting that divine compassion in our interactions with the world around us.
And that's exactly where we'll pick up next time.
Yes.
So join us for part 3 as we delve into that connection between divine mercy and our own responsibility to embody compassion in our interactions with others. Welcome back to our final deep dive into Ar-Rehman and Al-Raheem.
It's been a journey.
It really has.
We've gone from the womb to like the depths of suffering,
Right.
and now to how we can actually reflect these attributes in our lives.
Exactly. We talked about how we can receive Allah's mercy, especially when we're facing hardships. But I want to explore the other side of that coin, our responsibility to actually extend that mercy to others.
It's a fundamental principle in Islam
Yeah.
that understanding divine compassion should translate into action.
Okay.
It should inform how we treat everyone around us, especially those who are struggling.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's more like, be the mercy you want to experience.
Exactly. And this isn't just like a nice sentiment. It's a core teaching in Islam.
Okay.
The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, show mercy to those on earth, and the one in the heavens will show mercy to you.
So it's like this reciprocal relationship between giving and receiving mercy.
Yeah.
The more we embody compassion in our own lives,
Right.
the more we open ourselves up to experiencing it from Allah.
Exactly. And think about the attributes we've been discussing.
Okay.
You know, Ar-Rehman, that boundless universal compassion, calls on us to treat every single person with kindness and respect,
Okay.
regardless of their background, their beliefs, or even their circumstances.
Just like Allah's mercy extends to all of creation.
Yes.
So ours should too.
It should.
We should be reflecting that expansive love in our interactions with the whole world.
Right. It's about recognizing that inherent dignity and worth of every human being and treating them accordingly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what about Ar-Raheem?
Yeah.
That more focused, personalized mercy. How does that play into our actions towards others?
Well, Ar-Raheem reminds us that compassion isn't always about those, like, grand gestures or heroic acts.
Yeah.
It's often about those small, everyday acts of kindness, patience, and forgiveness that we extend to, the people in our lives.
Okay.
It's about being present for our loved ones, offering that listening ear when they're hurting,
Yeah.
and meeting them with understanding rather than judgment.
So cultivating these like micro moments of mercy,
Yeah.
these seemingly insignificant acts that could actually make a huge difference in someone's day,
Absolutely.
or maybe even their life.
And it's important to remember that everyone is fighting their own battles,
Yeah.
carrying their own burdens. We may not always know what someone else is going through, but we can choose to approach them with compassion regardless.
Yeah, because you just never know the impact that a simple act of kindness can have on someone.
Right.
It could be exactly what they need to keep going,
Exactly.
to feel seen and supported.
And just as we turn to Allah for mercy when we're struggling, we can actually be that source of mercy for someone else. We can be those beacons of hope and compassion in a world that desperately needs it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we're called to be these living embodiments of Ar-Rehman and Al-Raheem, reflecting those divine attributes in everything we do, every interaction we have.
Beautifully put. And while it's definitely a challenge, there's also this profound sense of reward that comes from choosing compassion. When we choose to act with mercy, we not only uplift those around us, but we also elevate our own souls.
It's like this upward spiral of goodness. The more we give, the more we receive, the more we grow in our capacity for compassion.
And ultimately, that's the essence of it all. To grow in our understanding of Allah's mercy and allow that understanding to transform us from the inside out.
So as we wrap up this whole deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
We've seen how the womb provides this powerful analogy for understanding Ar-Rehman and Al-Raheem. We've explored how these attributes can bring comfort and strength in the face of hardship.
Right.
And we talked about our responsibility to extend that same compassion to others.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
What other aspects of the human experience could offer us glimpses into Allah's attributes? What other metaphors or analogies can we use to deepen our understanding of the divine? That's something I really encourage you to ponder as you carry the lessons of Ar-Rehman and Al-Raheem with you. Until next time, may Allah's mercy be with you always.